can we bring the meeting to order? And I would ask if there are any non-voters in the hall that they please sit in the back of the room.
No, I can't hear you.
Yeah, it is on. Is this mic on? Are you getting feedback from the two mics? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Now, testing, testing, testing. If you be quiet, maybe you can hear me. Use this one. Can you hear me now, folks? All right. I'd like to bring the 1998 town meeting to order. And at this point, I'd recognize Representative Leon Calloweth to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Leon? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Jimmy. This time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to review the procedures under which we will conduct the meeting. There is no smoking permitted in this building. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all who wish to speak. If anyone is having trouble getting my attention, please give your name on a note to one of the ballot clerks who will see that I get it. And these kind ladies are sitting up front here. When making a motion, please use the microphones so that everyone may hear what you have to contribute to the discussion of an issue. I would especially ask that members of boards and committees do not use acronyms. It's unfair to assume that all in the audience know what they mean. When making a motion, please clearly state your name and street address. This is for the aid of the clerk, who has to keep the minutes, and of the moderator. Amendments to motions must be given to the moderator in writing. If you want to propose an amendment, you must have the amendment moved and seconded before you discuss it. It is contrary to the rules of procedure to discuss a motion before it is properly moved and seconded. The maker of a motion will be given the first opportunity to speak on it. No negative motions will be in order. All those who speak are to keep their remarks pertinent to the motion. No remarks that are personal attacks will be tolerated, and no profanity will be permitted. Please direct your questions through the moderator. We will allow one follow-up question. We do not want to allow running discussions to go on. This is in the interest of time and fairness to others who may wish to speak on an issue. Please try to avoid redundancy. And I think these chairs will help in that matter. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by, quote, the moderator's rules. This means that the moderator sets the ground rules for the meeting. However, law also allows you to overrule the moderator's ruling by a simple majority of vote. We will basically follow Robert's Rules of Order. Significant exceptions will be: a motion to adjourn or recess will not be accepted until all warrant articles have been on the floor. A motion to table will not be in order unless it is tabled to a specific time or place in order of this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to give a majority of the voters who have taken the time and effort to attend, to allow them to express their will on a matter. Therefore, there will be no reconsidering a matter at a late hour after the supporters of a particular warrant have gone home. We will not require that the maker of a motion to reconsider be a person who voted on the prevailing side the first time the item was put to a vote. The moderator will accept a motion to reconsider only when he is convinced it is a fair and valid order of business. The order of the warrant articles is somewhat established by statute. Bond articles must be considered first, and the time available for voting on a bond issue must be at least 1 hour. The last significant article we will consider is the budget for the coming year. Unfortunately, many people do not remain at the meeting until the budget is discussed. The moderator does not wish to discourage anyone from speaking on an issue. I just ask that you remember the passage of time before becoming redundant in the debate of an issue. Only those people who are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote at any time. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, he will require that the non-voter leave the hall. As you came into the meeting, the ballot clerks gave each registered voter a sheet of yes/no ballots. Lovely color. Almost as good as the pink of the town reports, you know. We have also arranged the hall so that the voters and non-voters are seated separately. This procedure has been established so that we don't have to go through the checklist every time a secret ballot is called for. It saves a tremendous amount of time to do this. We ask that you please respect this system. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 5 or more voters make a written request prior to voice or division vote on an article. The moderator must take a secret yes/no ballot when 7 or more voters challenge any non-ballot vote immediately after the vote is declared by the moderator and before any other business is begun. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak. If it is your wish to continue to do so, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. This time, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. First of all, our refreshments this evening are being done as a fundraiser for the LMS Boosters Club. And I've been asked by the Litchfield Firefighters Association to remind you that the annual Ham and Bean Supper is Saturday, March 28th from 4:30 to 7 o'clock at the Griffin School. The proceeds to help add to the association's donations toward the purchase of the new defibrillator. At this time, I'd like to announce to you the results of the elections on Tuesday. And speaking of the elections, I thank you for the patience in dealing with an old and tired voting machine. Elected to the Board of Selectmen, John Pincy, I want to introduce the head table first. Board of Selectmen, John Pinciero, Chairman, John Devereaux, Patricia Jewett, John Lazaro, Tom Levesque. Our school district clerk is Diane Jerry. Our budget committee is Bill Spencer, Chairman, Ralph Bowen, William Gray, Sue Ann Johnson, Charles Jones, David Michaud, Raymond Peoples, Cecil Williams, and the school board representative on the budget committee is Donna Straight, and the selectman representative on the budget committee is John Devereaux. Now for the election results. And you'd be interested to note that this year we had 1,034 people vote versus slightly over 600 a year ago in March. Significant turnout. Selectmen, elect 2 to a 3-year term. Elected were John Lazaro and John Pinciero. Checklist supervisor, elect 1 to a 6-year term, Robert Redding. Budget committee, elect 2 to a 3-year term, Sue Ann Johnson and William Spencer. Budget Committee, elect one to a one-year unexpired term, Timothy Wade. Fire Chief, elect one to a one-year term, Brent Lemire. Library Trustee, elect three to a three-year term, Zendel Bouchard, Carolyn Leary Lambert, and Quentin Lewis. Road Agent, elect one to a one-year term, Roland Bergeron. Trustee of Trust Funds, elect one to a three-year term, Cheryl Hartling. On the ballot questions, to adopt the provisions of RSA 40:13 to allow official ballot on all issues before the town, 60% voted needed to pass, was a 67% yes vote, 845 yes, 419 no. The ballot question passed. The two zoning ordinances both passed. The one in reference to personal wireless communications facilities had a vote of 946 yes, 251 no. And the one referencing private aircraft takeoff and landing facilities had 891 yes and 321 no. In the school district, elect one to a one-year term, moderator Philip Reed. School board member, elect two to a three-year term, Richard LaSalle and Lori Ortolano. School board member, elect one to a one-year unexpired term, Stephen Seabrook. School district clerk, by a write-in vote and acceptance, Gina Ferlin. School district treasurer, elect one to a one-year term, Joellen Bellerive. The ballot question, adopting the provisions of RSA 40:13 to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the school district, 68% majority, 60% needed. Yes was 838, no 394. The ballot question passed. And at this time, I'd like to give my personal thanks, and I think also the thanks of my co-workers that also start at 6 o'clock in the morning on Election Day, for all those people who came forward and helped us with the counting of ballots. And we were able to be out of there by 10 o'clock, which for those of us that are used to this is a good hour to get out. And I thank you all who came and helped. All righty. Article 1. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum. Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to recognize Chairman of the Budget Committee, Bill Spencer, for a very brief overview. Bill?
Well, welcome to the last town meeting, town of Litchfield. I'll be very brief. This year's budget, as we recommended it, will result in a decrease in the town portion of the tax rate of about 49 cents. Okay, so if you go along with our recommendations, the tax rate should go down for the town portion by about 49 cents. Next week, we'll be voting on the school budget, and if that passes as the Budget Committee has recommended, then the school portion will go up by about $2.15. So between the two budgets, you'll be looking at an increase in the order of $1.66, just to give you a feeling for where the budget is going.
By the way, lest anybody get confused, this isn't the last town meeting. We will have this process in the future. The difference is this process goes first. And it is during this process that you will have your last chance to make any changes in what's presented to you on the ballot. It will still have a deliberative session, and you can make amendments in what the school board and budget committee and the Board of Selectmen present to you. Then the amended articles as they come out of the deliberative session are what go on the ballot that you will vote on by official ballot. So those of you who are responsible citizens, which I compliment every person present tonight, please do not think the importance of the deliberative session is diminished in any way, shape, or form. It's probably even more important. So please, don't get any misimpressions about this session is not important. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $555,000 to construct 3,500 feet of Albuquerque Avenue, the center section, from Meadowbrook Lane to Hillcrest Road, to connect approximately 500 feet of Liberty Way from Albuquerque Avenue to the Town Hall Police Station, and to reconstruct the Hillcrest Road intersection at Albuquerque Avenue, and to authorize the issuance of $500,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA Chapter 33, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes not to exceed 5 years, and to further authorize the withdrawal of $50,000 of road impact fees and accrued interest created for this purpose. This will be a non-lapsing account per RSA 32:3, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the work is completed or in 2 years, whichever is less. We will vote by ballot. A two-thirds majority is required. The Selectmen and Budget Committee both recommend this appropriation. The polls will be open for 1 hour from the time we start voting. And I recognize Selectman Tom Levesque for a motion.
Yes, I move to Article 1.
Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Mr. Levesque, do you wish to speak to the motion? Yielded to Road Agent Roland Bergeron. You got it.
Good evening. Today is Friday the 13th, and they tell me there's a full moon out there, so I don't know what it means, whether I'm a winner or a loser. Briefly, I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm sure most of you are aware where the Albuquerque is, but I would just like to give you a little background. In the mid-'70s, a person by the name of Ed Roy out of Manchester, a developer, purchased about 600 acres from Talent, who at that time was running a camp for kids, mostly from New York, Pennsylvania. And his first section that he developed, well, in the planning stages, Mr. Albuquerque, who was the chairman of the planning board at that time, felt that we should have something cut through all this property in a road such as what they call Albuquerque today. And that road basically acts as a collector road. It's a collector road for all these pine crests, and eventually it was supposed to, or it's still scheduled, not scheduled, but designed to end up on 3A at the north end, and on the south end, run parallel with the proposed circumferential highway at the interchange. Okay. Now, for those of you that haven't seen the drawing, I have the drawings here of sections that have been built, some that to be built. The north end, I've got about 90% designed. The south end, which would run close to the circumferential highway, I got about 80% designed. There's a section between Simeon Lane and Century Lane that the developers are working on now. They're going to be constructing that. So if this article passes tonight, you would then be able to go from April Drive to Page Road. So that's a good section. If in time, we hope to complete the north end, because we got to cross Colby Brook. It means some type of bridge over there. And it would be just north, the entrance in 3A, and we've worked this out with the state because they control 3A, would come out just north of Colby Road on the north end. There's an old farmhouse there. We'd come between the farmhouse and another piece of property. The Albuquerque Avenue is a planned two-lane arterial way. That's originally planning. That's where the planning board, and they also they did set the center line of Albuquerque. We've changed it a bit, but only because of site conditions. Basically, Albuquerque is where it was originally laid out and by the planning board. One change we did make was one time Albuquerque would end up on 102. It would veer to the east, and now we had to change it because the circumferential highway is going at the location that we intended to bring Albuquerque on 102. So we redesigned and took it to the west, onto 3A, and at that proposed interchange. One thing I did do some traffic count on Meadowbrook Lane, and it was February 27th to March 5th. The weekday totals, eastbound and westbound, was 1,000 cars. Now, if you live on Meadowbrook, that's like 3A, I guess. And the Saturday total, eastbound and westbound, was 1,200. Well, everybody's going to the incinerator, I guess, so you're picking up another couple of hundred cars. I would also like to say we have a development on Carlisle Drive, which is about 49 lots. And Ledgewood, which you have a 50 up there. Everybody's going to revert back to the Albuquerque and up Meadowbrook. The Albuquerque is also designed to handle future buildings. One of them would be fire station as part of the site. And definitely it is a good location for fire station. You go north and south, east and west on all these collector roads, not collector road, but the other roads. So I think it's a good plan. I'll try to answer the questions you have. Let me see if I got anything else here. And it is a part of our 5-year plan. I have a 5-year plan, and 5-year plans are as good as what we can do because we don't have the money. But we try to do a plan, and this Albuquerque Avenue, Page Road, and Albuquerque Avenue, again, that small section, is all in the 5-year plan. This was negotiated with the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board. Open to questions if you have any.
Anybody else to speak to the motion? Yes, please state your name.
Sue Ann Johnson. There were 2 members of the Budget Committee that did not endorse this warrant article. And Roland, I do love you. But the concern was that this will give access to 7 parcels of land of approximately 30 acres apiece. So potentially this would enable development of 200 acres of land. And that would obviously, at this point, have a disastrous impact on the tax rate. And therefore, I was one of...
Did I answer that?
Therefore, I was one of the 2 members who was not in favor of this warrant article. Thank you.
This is working? Good.
Recognized, yeah. Just try the mic. He has to answer the question. Okay. All right, go ahead.
In regards to Susie's question, I didn't hear it all, but I understand what she's talking about. That land could be developed from Hillcrest. And right now... Okay. Oh, boy. They are presently laying out another small subdivision just adjacent to Carlisle, and the road will be in line with Meadowbrook. As you go in to the south on that proposed road, you could take a left and you're right in to the property that she was talking about. So you actually could develop it from a proposed road to the south, or you come in off Hillcrest and never touch Albuquerque. Never touch it. So it is not a... And then how long would that take? You know, we've been at it since early 1970, 78. So, okay, roll. Yeah, all right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Caleb Dobbins. I live on 15 Shirley Way. I'd like to just kind of give a little history also of Albuquerque Avenue. In 1980, the master plan for the town of Litchfield stated that Albuquerque Avenue would be a road built at no expense to the community. Since that time, that has been changed. It also stated that the land uses along Albuquerque Highway were entirely residential. This is still, to the best of my knowledge, the case. Now the master plan in 1991 is saying that the town is constructing Albuquerque Avenue to quote-unquote standards that better accommodate industrial traffic, of which heavy vehicles make up a significant portion. In addition to that, the 1991 master plan predicted that with Albuquerque being built, that by the year 2000, that the traffic on Albuquerque Avenue would more than double than what the current rates are at that time in 1991. Also stated in the 1991 master plan was that the objective number 4 under the transportation section of the master plan stated, quote, that this town should encourage commercial through traffic to use state-maintained highways in order to foster the highest degree of safety possible. The master plan is in contradiction to itself. This road is going to be constructed as a bypass to Route 3A. The master plan stated that if this is built, if Albuquerque Avenue is built from the terminuses that are shown by Mr. Bergeron and the town of Litchfield, that in fact traffic on Route 3A would decrease while the traffic on the town-maintained road of Albuquerque would increase. These would be your tax dollars that are paying to maintain a road that the master plan says should be taken care of by the state highway agency. I don't see why we as tax-paying citizens in Litchfield are creating a highway when that is not what we should be in the business of.
I would like to comment on some of his, at least one. As he noted, on the south end, Albuquerque would terminate at 3A. Now, we all know, maybe you don't know, but I know, that the circumferential highway is back in the picture, okay? So we're going to be building an interchange on 3A, one on 102, and then you're going to have that airport road in the north end. We're going to be in the middle. So certainly the traffic will not decrease on 3A. If anything, they're going to be widening it because you're going to have a lot of diversionary traffic. Would you, if the circumferential highway was built and you're coming in, say, from 111, you would either get off at 102, preferably maybe 3A, to bypass all the tolls. If you want to go to the airport, I think that's common sense. I would probably do that. Save a buck, 25 cents, whatever. Now, maybe I want to say something on the circumferential highway, if it's okay. No? Okay. My peers have said, cut it off.
Yes, sir.
Al Raccio, 16 Bear Run. We didn't, on the other side of the room over there, understand or get the full impact of her statement. Would we be allowed to have her restate it with the microphones working properly, please?
The statement I made was that 2 people in the Budget Committee were not in favor of this warrant article. And the main reason was because that when the road is completed, it will access 7 parcels of land of approximately 30 acres each, which would more than likely enable the development of more than 200 acres of land. We had strong concerns that if that were to happen, the impact on the tax rate for this town would be detrimental, and therefore I do not recommend this warrant article. Thank you. And that's me as a private citizen because the Budget Committee did recommend it.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive, the other member of the Budget Committee that voted against it. In previous years, the Budget Committee had voted against it. The main reason I had voted against it is not, I don't believe it is the town's responsibility to construct roads. The rest of Albuquerque, except for a small section that was handled by a settlement, was done by the developers. And this section should also be done by the developers. We shouldn't be opening up 200 some acres of land for developers. That's the developer's job to do, not the town's.
have an additional question, sir.
Not relating to what he just had, I did have a question as to whether or not all of the permits that are required for this road are in order.
Yes.
They are. Well, I guess if I can respond to that, I contacted the District 5 headquarters in Hooksett, New Hampshire. They are responsible for Hillcrest Road. It is a state-owned road. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, there had been no permit filed by the town of Litchfield for the connection of Albuquerque Avenue to Hillcrest. So therefore, as of this stands right now, Hillcrest or Albuquerque Avenue cannot be connected to Hillcrest at this time.
We did have a permit for the first time shot we went to it, and we have reapplied. We've sat down with the state, and I forget who the engineers were we sat down with, and they recommended some changes that we made on this drawing.
Well,
design.
per
You had your follow-up, sir. We're going to limit it to one follow-up. Thank you. Next speaker.
Mary Pacheco. I live on Meadowbrook Lane, otherwise known as Albuquerque Extension. The whole length of Albuquerque, there are no driveways that come out directly onto Albuquerque. If you go down Meadowbrook, all of our driveways come out onto the road. We might as well be called Albuquerque Extension. The cars go just as fast, there are just as many, and there will be more. With the new town hall, we now have town hall traffic coming up and down the road, and as Mr. Bergeron said, there's new developments going in. We will have more traffic. If you come from Hillcrest to Albuquerque, coming down the hill, as you go over the rise, there is a blind spot. It is exasperated at sunset with the sun in your eyes. I had one child survive learning how to ride a bike. I would love for my second child to have the same outcome. It's a dangerous road. Cars fly over that hill. We did not buy houses on Albuquerque. We bought houses on Meadowbrook. As a resident of that street, I please implore you to vote for this.
Hi, I'm Gina Furlan. I live on Talent Road, and because of the money issues that are facing our town right now, due to the fact that we have no place for our kids to go to high school, and the development of the land that would be off of Albuquerque Avenue, I find it difficult to endorse this, even though I can feel definitely for the people who live on Meadowbrook, because we have so many obstacles facing our kids right now in getting the programs that they need. $550,000 spent on this road is not going to give our kids any more education or programs. Although at this time I really understand how the people on Meadowbrook can feel, and they have a lot of, they should have a lot of say in this, but I really feel that the $550,000 could be spent better elsewhere.
Larry Levesque, 5 Morgan Road. I just have a couple statements to make. Basically, number one, whether or not we develop that road and put that road through, those houses or those developments that are interested in going in there are probably going to go in. Unless the town is interested in buying the land from them or buying the rights of the development of the property, we're not going to stop progress. Progress is going to happen. Litchfield's a bedroom community from Nashua and Manchester. We're in between. There's no way around it. Another statement is your child's life worth $500,000 to you? It is to me.
I'm Brent Lemire, 547 Charles Bancroft Highway. I understand both sides of the concerns that people have here in this issue. I would only ask from a public safety point of view. Those of you that are waiting for us to get to your location for any type of emergency, it is a problem for us to have to go up Meadowbrook. Those of you that live on Meadowbrook know full well the problem that we have getting around. The whole point, the design, I've been here 20 years, and I understand the cost factor. I understand the problems that we may be facing. We've been facing these same problems for 25 and 30 years. And if we keep putting burying our heads in the sand and saying, well, this is coming up, we will never get anything done in this town. This is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a part of a public safety issue to connect the roads and to keep the traffic fluid and to allow us to get to your house as fast as we can. There is a problem here. There's going to be more problem, and as far as the development goes, I understand that, but it's going to happen anyway, whether Albuquerque is completed or not.
Is there any further discussion on the article? You haven't been recognized.
Since two members of the Budget Committee got up and said why they didn't vote for it, I thought I'd explain to you why the Budget Committee did vote for it. And I would agree with Mr. Boehm that in years past we've said we don't recommend this, wait until it's the right time. It was the opinion of the Budget Committee that it was the right time to do this, that the traffic counts have increased dramatically, and with the advent of the town hall, which we voted to put up there last year, it's going to increase even more. You've talked about the cost. We suggested to go as a bond. That was the Budget Committee recommendation. As a bond, it's a 5-year bond. You're probably looking at something in the order of 28 or 29 cents on the tax rate for 5 years. We don't put very much money into the town. We put an awful lot in the school. And, you know, there comes a time when you ought to be putting some money into the town as well as into the school. And that's the reason why the Budget Committee recommended that that this come about this year.
Do I have any other discussion? Hearing none, I presume you're ready for the vote. We are now voting on Article 1, which I won't reread the whole thing, but basically it's for allow a bond issue of $500,000 and to use $50,000 in interest, accrued interest from the impact fees. You will vote with the white ballot. Obviously, you'll mark either yes or no, fold the ballot in half, and we'll have a ballot box over here. The voting is opening at 8:20. Poll will be open until 9:20. After the initial rush of voters has gone through, and I ask if anybody who came in late does not have a ballot, check with the ballot clerks. We will, after the initial rush of votes is through, we will get back into session.
Good. Here is where it's like you're not supposed to be tonight.
Next week. TV, that's what they do in office. Put it on TV. Then when they come down to vote, they allow them to come for an hour. They just sit at home. And then they come down to the town hall. To the town meeting. They don't want to stay there for the whole night. Ladies and gentlemen, I admitted one rather significant procedure at the beginning of our meeting. And I would ask those folks who've been elected to office as of Tuesday to come forward to be sworn in. And I will ask Selectman Pat Jewett to administer the oath of office. So will all those who are elected please come forward for a swearing in. Thank you.
a group of beautiful people. Where are you all? Where's the females? Anyone else? No one else? Okay. Ready? Okay. Please raise your right hand. I state your name. Solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as blank for the town of Litchfield, according to the best of my abilities, agreeably to the rules and the regulations of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire. So help me God. Amen. You are full.
Thank you, Pat. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $180,000 to overlay and reconstruct Page Road from Route 102 to Route 3A, and to further authorize the use of $180,000 from the State Highway Block Grant Aid Fund to offset this appropriation. This will be a non-lapsing account per RSA 32:3, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the work is completed or in 2 years, whichever is less. The Selectmen and the Budget Committee recommend this appropriation. I recognize Pat Jewett for a motion. Do I have a second? Pat, do you wish to speak to the motion? Pat yields. Wait a minute. She yielded. Roland. Right. Selectman Jack Finciaro.
Good evening, everyone. This particular overlay is a no-cost item. The state will gives us block grant money, and that's money that our illustrious road agent gets out of them. It's actually no cost. There's no increase in the tax rate. I think those who travel Page Road, I know I do myself quite often, and it is in dire need. On the southern end, on the 3A end, it's breaking up pretty bad. As you get up further up into it, it's even getting worse. And you get up on the 102 section, just short by the Pagewood Oval, it's gotten pretty bad. So I really do encourage you to vote for this. This is not a cost item. Basically, it's money that we're given to by the state. As I said, you travel it, you know that it's in need. I thank you very much, and I hope that you'll pass this.
Excuse me 1 minute. Is there any of the custodians in the hall? Any of the school custodians? Yes. Do you know where the ballot collecting rods are? Thank you. The reason I ask is because we have a request for a secret ballot on this article, so you won't have to get out of your seats. We'll just use one of the tear-off ballots. Is there any further discussion on this article? Hearing none, I presume you're ready for a vote. Moving right along, we will vote ballot number 8. Please tear off the ballot. Mark it either yes or no. May I have 2 volunteers on each side? Jack Elgill, you just volunteered over here. excuse me, sir, in the front row, would you volunteer to help on this side? And then I'll need Roland or Dave. We'll put you work as a ballot collector, and a gentleman over there. Oh, Jesus. Please use ballot number 8. I think since we have already 2 road issues under vote, I'm going to skip over Article 3 and go to Article 4, come back to Article 3 later. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to establish, in accordance with RSA 35, a Litchfield Cable Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of purchasing new or replacement equipment for the development of local cable programming, the broadcasting or rebroadcasting of public meetings, and school or town-related programs, to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 or 10% of the current cable franchise fee paid by Litchfield cable subscribers, whichever is less, and to designate the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend or to act on anything relative thereto. This is a special warrant article per RSA 32:3, Roman numeral 6. The Selectmen recommend this program. The Budget Committee does not recommend the appropriation. I recognize John Devereaux for a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion made and seconded. John, to speak to the motion.
Good evening, everyone. The Cable Committee is asking the town for $3,000 to establish a capital reserve fund. The money would come from the franchise fees currently paid by cable subscribers. The concept of a franchise fee was originally established to help towns administer their franchise. And one right of a franchise, according to law, is public access. Now, currently, $36,000 is paid by cable subscribers in town, Litchfield, to the cable company, which it then turns it over to the town. And this helps at this time to offset goes into the general fund to help offset taxes. Now, some towns, such as Londonderry and Pelham, reinvest their franchise fees into public access studios with full-time employees and volunteers. The Cable Committee is asking the town to reinvest less than 10% of that money, which is $3,000, into a capital reserve fund for 2 reasons. The first is for a future live production via public access when access is provided to our cable system, not if, but when. The town will need equipment to produce live shows. The most cost-effective solution to this end is to purchase a portable studio system, which currently costs about $20,000. The system could be carried from event to event and would essentially provide live broadcasting from whichever the event would be. Since the town does not currently have access to their cable system, the Cable Committee felt that it would be advantageous to spread out the acquisition of these funds for 2 or 3 years. This means that next year the Cable Committee would have to come back to the town in order to ask for any reinvestment of next year's franchise fees. Now, the second reason for this fund is for the repair or replacement of the town's existing equipment, as you see around here tonight. This equipment, as you see, is in pretty good shape, but is getting more and more use. This year, there's at least 3 times more production being done than last year. And as it gets used more and more, the equipment breaks down and needs repair. Incidentally, this equipment does not belong to the Cable Committee. It belongs to the towns. It belongs to you people. And any citizen in the town can borrow the equipment once they've taken a training course, which is provided by the Cable Committee free of charge. Now, why should you support public access or live production for Litchfield? Our current system of providing public access and shows such as this means that one of us, including myself, have to walk the tape down to Merrimack, and we have to work out a time slot that maybe we can show this show. Having our own system, our own channel, the town would be able to dictate when a show was shown and how many times it was shown. So we would basically have control over what goes on the cable and when it would be shown. Also, there's other reasons, such as Senate Bill 2, which just was passed. Opponents say that the bill will create uninformed voters. Well, having these deliberative sessions and budget hearings and board meetings published or broadcasted on TV would help provide the information that will allow the voters to make sound decisions. The bottom line is that Litchfield Public Access Channel would have the potential of being the #1 source for Litchfield news and information. The Cable Committee asks for your support and to help bring Litchfield into the 80s. Thank you. No, 80s. I meant 80s. I really did, because public access is an 80s thing, not a 90s thing.
He knew what he was saying. The Budget Committee did not recommend this article, and I recognize Bill Spencer from the Budget Committee to speak to the issue.
And part of the problem is that is an 80s issue, and we're about to go into the 90s, so who knows what the 90s issue really is. But that's beside the point. The reason the Budget Committee did not recommend this is because it's a fundamental issue on setting up reserve accounts and whether or not you want to set up a reserve account for such a small amount of money. Typically, when you're talking about this kind of money, whoever wants it would come before the voters and say, here's why I want it. They would have a well-defined plan on what they want to do and a very specific amount of money. In this case, what you just heard Mr. Devereaux say is they'd like to get $20,000, and it might be to replace equipment or it might be for a new piece of hardware. That, in my mind, is not the way you want to go. We fund things within the budget much larger than this without setting up reserve funds. We buy police cars, 1 every other year, 2 every other year. We buy new plows, we buy new sanders. We don't have reserve accounts for that. Once you set a reserve account up, it just feeds on itself. You never get rid of it, and that's one reason why the Budget Committee opposed it. The other thing, Mr. Devereaux pointed out that it would be paid for by the franchise tax. Well, the fact is it's going to be paid for by your tax rate, not by the franchise tax, because every bit of dollar that comes out of the franchise tax is not there to pay for your taxes, so you're going to wind up paying for it. It really isn't free money. Don't think that it is. And lastly, if you look in your town report, which you have in front of you on page 27, you'll see that the town currently has $6,300 sitting there in the reserve from the original grant for cable television equipment. So they've already got $6,000 on hand. So I don't know why you need to appropriate any more money on a reserve account. That's our reason.
Yes, we do have a little bit of money in I guess you could call it reserve, but if any subscribers notice on their bill it says PEG charge, and what had happened was an agreement was made with the cable company a few years ago to get some money to purchase PEG equipment. That's how we got the video equipment that you see here. Now, unfortunately, they saw in their wisdom to pass it through to the subscribers, so you're getting charged twice. You're getting charged with the PEG equipment, with the video equipment we have, and the franchise fee. Now, we, the cable committee, and of course in our negotiations, we would never recommend trying to add more charges to the companies, to the people who subscribe to cable. What we're trying to use is to invest the money that's currently being paid by the subscribers and not add any more money that's paid by the subscribers to invest in public access. So, Bill mentioned that there was, say, 6,000. We're asking for another 3,000. Again, our goal was 20,000. So we would be maybe halfway there. And in maybe a couple years, if we're lucky, maybe we'd be even closer to our goal. But the thing is that the equipment is going to be needed eventually, not right now. That's why we didn't ask for all the money. And in a couple years, all of a sudden we'll have access to our system and we won't have the equipment to do anything with it, which I think would be a real shame. So I just wanted to respond with those two things.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Dick Rafferty. I live at 33 Century Lane. I think anyone that happened to see the candidates' night replayed on the local access channel was impressed. I think the fellas that did the taping did a good job, gave the community a chance to see and hear what the candidates had to say without actually being there. You would have noticed, as my daughter did, that I said 41 times. And then one prominent member of the Budget Committee appeared to be sleeping through my speech, and that was worth a lot for me to see. I'd tend to give the gentleman the benefit of the doubt. I think, again, especially with the way we're going to change our meetings somewhat next year, it is important to get communication out and know what everyone has to say. And I really enjoyed and appreciated seeing that, and I'd like to see more of it.
Any other comments on the article? Dave Cook.
Dave Cook, Cutler Road. I noticed in the flyers we get from the cable company that all the surrounding towns are paying 3% on the franchise fees. Litchfield is paying 5%. Why is that?
That was a decision made by the selectmen a few years ago, I believe. I think some of those towns are going to be raising it to 5%, and some of those same towns are looking to try to invest that extra money into public access, into their own production. So it's a decision by the selectmen a few years ago to do that. That's the most that they can legally charge the subscribers to pay for franchise fee.
Further discussion? Charlie? Question's been called. That's a motion to end debate. It's non-debatable. All those in favoring end debates, please signify by saying aye. Aye. As opposed, no. Ayes have it. We're ready for a vote on Article 4 to see if the town will vote to establish, in accordance with RSA 35A, Litchfield Cable Capital Reserve Fund, etc. Time marches on. We again have a request for secret ballot. Use ballot number 16. Marking it yes or no, and I ask my ballot collectors to resume their duties. Article 2, the vote yes was 226, no 31. Article passed, and in the process we raised another 35 cents towards the fund. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $112,000 to reconstruct Albuquerque Avenue from Pinecrest Road to Wren Street, and to further authorize the use of $5,000 from the State Highway Blank Grant Aid Fund to offset this appropriation, with a balance of $107,000 to be raised by taxation. This will be a non-lapsing account per RSA 32:3, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the work is completed or in 2 years, whichever is less. The Selectmen and Budget Committee both recommend this appropriation. We have a request for a secret ballot. I recognize Selectman Pinciero for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept it as written and yield to Mr. Bergeron.
Do I have a second? I have a second for Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Bergeron to speak to the motion.
The section of Albuquerque and Pinecrest to Wren is a road that's probably 20 years old. It was built by the developers, one course. The condition the road is in now cannot be overlaid. If you do, you're just spending money for nothing. What we intend to do is reclaim the road 100%. That means we bring in a machine, we hammer mill the roads, we use the material for the road. We reshape it, put a crown in it. There are times we'll bring some more asphalt in to meet a certain percentage. And basically, that's it. Just a rebuild of a road. If you notice, there's a lot of alligating. That means there's a lot of transverse cracking in it, the shoulders, and we're going to upgrade the drainage as well. When I say that, the gutter lines. That's all I have. You got questions? Try to answer them.
Further discussion on the article? Hearing none, I presume you're ready for a vote. Again, we will vote by secret ballot. We'll use ballot number 9. My ballot collectors are going to go to work out tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. Article 3, which was to raise and appropriate $112,000 for reconstruction of Albuquerque. The vote was 113 yes, 146 no. The article is defeated. Excuse me, number 4. I'm sorry. Number 4 was 113 yes, 146 no. They're still counting number 3. Article 5. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to insulate and equip the Dara Pond building with a heating system, and to further authorize the withdrawal of $7,800 of recreational impact fees and accrued interest created for this purpose. This will be a non-lapsing account per RSA 32:3 Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the work is completed or in 2 years, whichever is less. The selectmen recommend this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. We have a request for a secret ballot. I recognize Selectman John Lazaro for a motion. I have the motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. John, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Good evening, everyone. This is Roy Memorial Park we're talking about. It's been in town for quite a long time. I've been in town since 1977. The building's basically always sat vacant and unused. The only time it's used is in the summertime, when the summer camp program uses the building. When it's raining, it's used for storage. Otherwise, we have to close it down in the wintertime, empty all the pipes, drain it, let it sit there, let it get vandalized by the youth in the town when nobody's around late at night. We'd like to finally utilize this building, heat, insulate inside the building, get to use it year-round, make it a year-round recreational center for the town itself. This means the adults and the children in the town. Everyone will use the building and have access to the building. We've talked about many programs. We'd like to run in this building. We've already talked to some people to be able to do it for us. We would like to keep the cost down minimal to the townspeople to be able to use this and to enjoy this. We have 2 quotes so far. One we received about 2 weeks ago to insulate, heat, and vinyl side the building. That came out to about $33,000. Then we had a little glitch thrown in our way. Mr. Bergeron said he'd like to do an air exchange inside this building so we don't have any problems like we did at the elementary school. And because of that, I guess we just got a new bid or a new quote, and I just heard the figures tonight, and they're roughly around $53,000. And they'll be doing the work basically from inside the building and not on the exterior, except for the vinyl siding on the exterior. They will create new walls inside, have to move all the electrical and insulate from the inside of the building, along with the air exchange. Larry Levesque and Dick Rafferty are going to talk about this, and they can give you some of the facts and figures more for this than I can myself right now. Thank you.
The Budget Committee did not recommend this, and I recognize Sue Ann Johnson to speak for the Budget Committee.
The Budget Committee did not support this warrant article for a number of reasons. When it was submitted, the Recreation Committee did not have written estimates for the work to be done and no clearly defined long-term plans. There were too many unanswered questions. What type of events would be held there? Who would be allowed to hold events there? Who would staff the events? Would they be paid or volunteer? What would it cost the town to maintain and heat the building? How many people would attend the events? And would there be parking issues? And how the change of use to a year-round facility would affect the neighboring residents. Further, a community profile is beginning this year, and the committee felt it would be better to wait and see the recommendations of the profile before committing to this project. It wasn't just the original $50,000 request, but the numerous unknown future costs as well. That's why the committee did not support the warrant article. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dick Rafferty. Sue's right. When we first started to propose this, it was an idea, and we didn't have a lot of hard, firm plans. But we have a very small but energetic recreation committee. Currently now, the town doesn't offer much recreational-wise. Anything that's recreational usually comes from a private group such as softball, soccer, Little League. That's not the town. The town really doesn't offer much except the Dara Pond summer camp and the pond that's there for swimming. We want to do something. We have an opportunity to fix this building, to make it workable. We need the money to hire an engineer that will develop firm plans on paper that we will submit to Mr. Bergeron. He's been kind enough to advise us, to get us going, tell us what we need to do. We've gone out and we've gotten what we feel is pretty firm estimates on what it will cost to insulate it, to heat it, to ventilate it. But now we do need the money to go forth, hire an engineer, have him put it on paper, gift wrap it, make it presentable so we can give it to Roland, and he can give us the yay or nay or make any corrections necessary. We will, as long as I'm on the committee, use that building. It will not be a white elephant. There are tremendous opportunities for youth and adults, anything that you could do at the Y. On Wednesday nights, they have an adult basketball program here, which quite often is preempted when anything else is going on. They can have that down there. The CYO has already contacted us. They'd like to use it. It can be used for any of the softball, soccer, Little League, tryouts, anytime there's rain problems. We'll use it. We don't have, and we really can't give you a concrete plan that's going to tell you everything we'll do there every hour of the day. We need to get the building fixed. I said again. I wasn't going to do that. Bill tells me it would cost 12 cents. If you have a $100,000 house like me that's evaluated for $150,000, it'll cost you 12 cents on the 1,000 to get this done. That's $18. $18 so we can have square dancing, bingo, adult dancing, teen recreation center. There's really nothing for teenagers. Our kids are growing older. There's nowhere for them to hang out where they can be safe, where you can be comfortable leaving them with some supervision. Hopefully combined with the bike path that Roland was able to get to us, combined with the skate park, now we can start doing something that's a plus for the town. Rather than having nothing, we'll have something, and it isn't a big cost to us. So I urge you to support it. Trust us, we'll do it right. Larry is going to give us a little breakdown on where we got these figures so you can feel a little more comfortable supporting it. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Larry Levesque. Been on the Recreation Committee just over a year. I really am impressed at the size and use that building possibly has. It's just sitting there not being used just in the summer camp program right now. We've opened it a couple of times to soccer to use it for registrations and tryouts and a couple of small activities like that. I personally have a lot of time on my hands to donate to help staff it if that's a concern. And I know other people have definitely shown interest in doing the same. Money-wise, we did get a couple of varying quotes, and like John Lazaro said, there was a reason for the higher end of the quote and a higher end of the estimate, and that had to do with an additional air handling system. The price including the air handling system, this is just a letter of intent basically, it's not an official quote, $53,840 was one price, and the price, and that included doing the insulation on the inside, gypsum board and plywood over that, and the heating system would go on the out, and air handling system would be mounted on the outside of the building. The other prices that one of the other prices that we got was doing just 2 space heaters, 2 propane fired space heaters on the inside, and insulating the outside and vinyl siding on the outside. And that, as John Mazzaro said, the price on that was in the mid-30s. And as far as an estimated cost of heating the building per month in the wintertime, we're looking at a figure of about $300.
No. No. People on the floor want to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lisa Keller, 66 Pilgrim Drive. This sounds like a great idea. My only concern, maybe this is already covered, the maintenance of this facility. Is this already a line item in the budget, or is this something that you're going to have to come back to and rely on the voters every year to provide the maintenance of this facility, like the heating system or anything else?
John, you want to answer that?
I can answer the question.
All right.
There is a line item in the budget, and it has been used for maintenance on the building. There is right now there's minimal maintenance previous to this past year. We've done a lot of work on the building to try and get it back up to standards, trying to correct things that we've noticed that were wrong with it. But there is a line item in there, and that is funded.
Mr. Reed, the select would like to ask a question of what we're getting. What is the total number of dollars you're asking for this time? Do you want to go get it? What did you
Go with what the warrant article is asking for.
Did you say 53 and 32?
No, the warrant article's for $50,000. The $50,000 is what's on the floor. Yes, sir.
Al Raccio, 16 Bear Run. What's going to be the total impact of opening this building up for the entire year with respect to the fire department, the police department, the road department for plowing? What's the building really going to cost us over and above the $50,000 just to recondition it? But the town liabilities, insurance, all of those issues. Has that been scoped out by the warrant sponsors?
We already paid.
Step to the mic, please.
We already paid for all these within the town budget, so the building's already maintained. We have an alarm system on the building, which we pay monthly for, so everything's already paid for and covered by the town. I also wanted to add one other thing, if I can do it at this time. I also work for the gas company, and I discovered that the town right now is paying 70 cents a gallon for their liquid propane. And an average homeowner, I know I have it, is paying 99 cents. And the more propane that the town uses, we will get even a better or cheaper rate for the town. So we possibly could be getting liquid propane at 50 cents a gallon, which will even cut all the costs for all the town buildings.
Right, but the original question still, sir, has the fire department, the police department, the road department, everybody concurs that there's no additional cost in maintaining this?
There'll be no additional cost for anything else for this.
Charlie.
Charlie Jones from Grouse Lane. How can we afford not to spend money to save money, John? My question really is, having been through a few of these meetings myself, how much money have we already put into this building over the last 10 years? A lot of money. And I can recall discussions about fixing the heating system with some of those $20,000 articles in our other building. So can someone tell me what we've spent on it already? If I said $100,000, would I be way off the mark?
$35,000 on the roof. Because there was a fire inside that building.
Please do not talk without use of the mic.
So, I don't have an answer to that, I guess. Okay. Let me ask you a second question. Assuming we do this, and then I'll sit down. Is this going to be self-sustaining? Are you going to make enough money at that to support it and all of its expenses and maintain it after day one? Have you planned that? Have you projected funding and all of those type of things?
I'll let somebody from the Recreation Commission speak on it.
Yes, for some of the programs that we would have, let's say you have an aerobics class. There'd probably be a nominal fee that would go to pay for the instructor and a small percentage to, keep up the the building, the electricity, things like that. But to answer the first part of your question, Roland, you were going to say something?
Use the mic, Roland. Use the mic, Roland.
How much money did they spent on the building way back when they were not secured? The building was unsecured. Some kids got in there, started a fire. The floor was burning. The roof section was. I had to go in there and contract out roof repairs or replacement actually, and properly insulated. So for future, they want to put heat in there. We had to redo the floor. And we did spend $35,000. It was good $35,000 spent, and I think we got some insurance out of it as well. That's $35,000 that I'm aware of that I spent.
I would just like to follow up on the $300 number. Not to you, Roland. Are we going to raise $300 a month in there to pay for the heat?
What was your question again, Charlie?
We would hope to. Initially, obviously, it would take some time to get the building up and running to its fullest extent. But again, we're asking for a bit of a leap of faith, obviously. We have a building there that's in pretty darn good shape. If we do nothing, it'll deteriorate, and we'll continue to use it for basically nothing. It's a chance to enhance it and give our community something that we don't have now, something that we can all use, our children can use, we can use.
I recognize Mr. Spencer from the Budget Committee.
I'd just like to follow up on some of the things that Sue Ann said. She mentioned the community profile. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of what that is, but the planning board will be sponsoring a community profile of the town of Litchfield this year. The intent is to get the community members together and try to figure out what the needs of Litchfield are. I've got to believe that the youth of Litchfield will be one of the prime items that will be identified in there. And out of that ought to come some recommendations on what to do for the youth, because it clearly there's something has to be done. Our concerns, again, to reiterate, is that just putting money into the building isn't the answer. There are going to be long-term costs associated with that. If you want to use that building on a full-time basis, you're probably going to be looking at a recreational director. All those things should be thought out before you start pouring more money into it. That's the reason why we said what we did. You heard bingo. I can remember Rich LaSalle standing up many, many years ago talking about bingo in Darrah Pond. We still don't have bingo in Darrah Pond. To me, it's a field of dreams. Build it, they will come. Well, I'd rather know who's coming before I build it. So.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Nancy Lewis. I live at 44 Stark Lane. I can't speak for all the age groups here, but I know that in other towns, when you have recreation centers, the whole community comes together there, and I think it's good for an intergenerational mix. It's a good place for us to meet and get to know each other and go through programs together. And I think that almost everybody here knows that there's a need for recreation programs for kids, especially after school. I know there are a lot of grant monies available for programs like this that can't be sought out unless you have a place to run a program like this. So I think that if you know that there's a need for this building, then why don't we get going? If you think if you're pretty sure that there's a recreational need in our town for this building, why don't we get it started so that once we have the study and we know specifically what we need, then we can continue with that and not be a year behind. I guess I get a little impatient with these things, but I've seen a lot of children grow up in Litchfield with very few recreational choices. And I've seen some of them fall through the cracks, and I know there are children this year that would benefit perhaps from midnight basketball as teenagers or after-school programming for latchkey kids. I guess I feel a desperate need to hurry this up.
Still want to speak? John Lazaro.
I'd like to say a few things. We have a town that's perpetually growing. I have 2 teenage boys at home myself. There is nothing in this town or any place for the kids in this town to go to and to hang out at. They can go into the woods, they can go in their friends' parked cars, they can go into parents' homes when they're not home and have their own little parties and everything. But we want some place where we know they can go and be monitored and be safe, and they're not with the wrong element. We want them to have adults there to volunteer to spend time with them, to help assist them, and let them grow within our community, grow in a safe environment also. I've started my own program within the town, which is a Parents Awareness Program. I have a group also that I am running with this. We haven't met in a few months, but we will be meeting again. I'm trying to make people aware that there is drugs and alcohol in our school systems now, and most of the kids in town are very much aware of it, and most of the kids in town are doing it. But if we have a place where they can go and be monitored by an adult, they'll be safe. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dawn Damaris, 16 Rookery Way. Just a couple of things. I do think it's a good idea, but on the other hand, I don't believe that we need heat for summer programs. And secondly, I'm paying taxes on this building, and this looks like a pretty good place to do a lot of those programs like bingo and midnight basketball. Thank you.
Tim?
Yes, I was on the Recreation Committee for a number of years I got off a couple of years ago. And there was money left in a warrant article that actually paid for a lot of the renovations you see now in the building. And we tried to put a radiant heat system in the building under Mark, who was the chairman at that time. But we could not, and a radiant heat system is one where you heat the people, you don't heat the space. And the reason why we couldn't do that was because we didn't have the building insulated, and it was required under the regulations to have it insulated. And therefore, we could not get a four-season occupancy, but we were able to get a one-season occupancy for the summer. And therefore, we've been using it for the summer program, which has been very successful and used by many, many children in this town. Over 100 children every week attend there for about a 6-week time period, and it's well utilized and quite an asset for the town. We've also, at that time, were approached by a number of different organizations who wanted to use the building both in the fall and the springtime and in the winter, who were willing to pay a fee to go to that building. But we could not get an occupancy permit for them to go to that, to be able to use the building. So there is possibilities for revenue from outside organizations, because we had been approached just out of the blue, not even asking people. As to facilities here, being part of the Litchfield Youth Soccer League, we've tried to get facilities here to do indoor soccer practices before the spring season occurs, which it's kind of wet out there right now, and we can't get facilities. This place and Griffin are used to the max all year round. So we just don't have the facilities in this town to handle what currently we have the needs for recreation. So I think, and another problem with Darrah Pond has been that we've suffered a lot of vandalism. And this is basically in the fall season, winter season, because it's not occupied. And even though you have lights there and you have an alarm system and everything, we suffer a lot of vandalism. And the worst is where kids would typically take the ventilation holes, which are on the side of the building to provide ventilation in there, would take and remove the plates, which would allow the skunks to get inside the building, which would stink the building up. And the first time that we went in there in the fall, you had to open it up and air it out. We need to have occupancy year-round if we're going to keep the building. If we're not, it's just going to deteriorate itself. It's an investment because we do not have enough recreation space currently in town. I support this warrant, and I hope everybody will. Thank you.
Just want to let you know that the skunks are there and they say hi. I had some concern, I guess, that I was unclear as far as the way that I brought out the pricing. That pricing for $53,840 was a total inclusion package, which included the heating system, ventilation system, and insulating inside, as well as gypsum board and sheetrock over that. A finished surface to be painted. That is what that price included. And I also want to let you know that people that were curious about what the children want, what we need for recreation. We had a fine group of students come to the, for lack of a better phrase to call it, what to do with the old town hall building, and presented a use for that building to be used as a recreation center for the children, for the kids in school in this town. And it was a well professional done presentation, and I was very impressed with it. I talked to them, and pretty much we came up with the idea that, you know, if the town hall was not suitable for that, possibly Dara Pond, which is the building that was intended for it all along and which is being used for a summer camp program as part of the Recreation Committee's assets, part of the town's assets, and it's just not being utilized, and it's right in the center of town with the pond, with the fields, and I just feel that just a central location for people to go and people to meet and have different activities would be such a benefit. And there was a group, and it was a very large group of students and children in this town that agree with that.
Hello, my name is Mark Charbonneau, 5 Laurel Street. I'd like to support this program, and I'd like to thank the volunteers that do all the work. One of the things that happens in Litchfield is there's a lot of people that volunteer and do a lot of work, and a little bit of funding gives them the tools to finish the project. This project, we've been coming to town meeting for 10 years. Rich Lascelles' group totally got burnt out, and we got to finish this building or knock it down because we've been at it for 10 years. I'd like to move the question.
Mr. Peoples. Ray Peoples, 205 Charles Bancroft. My question is two-part. In so much as this building is a government building and the selectmen are in charge of government buildings, I'm surprised they're not bringing this warrant forth themselves, because I know they've appointed Roland to be in charge of government buildings here in town. Secondly, as far as something to do in Litchfield for the kids, I know for a fact that we have soccer, we got basketball, we got baseball, we have Boy Scouts, we have Cub Scouts. There is things for the kids to do. To give them a building just to hang around in, I think would foster the things that we're trying to prevent without having full-time staff, which at this point I don't think we're ready to, or prepared to do. The community profile, which you heard Bill and Sue-Ann speak about, is to put together a cross-section of people in the town of Litchfield. And what's going to come out of that, after the data is all put in, is what the real needs are and where that money should go. You know, it might be determined that instead of finishing the Dara Pond building, we need 3 new soccer fields, and that's where the real need is, or where the people want their money to go. I think we're investing money in the community profile, and we ought to wait until we do have a look at the data before we spend our money on this building this year.
Mr. Lascelles.
Just to give folks a little bit of history on the building. The building was built in 1948 in memory of a fellow that went down in an airplane crash in World War II over France. The building in the early 80s, when the town took over the park, the building sat idle for a number of years and was vandalized. Children had gone in, the doors were boarded up, children had gone in and set fires on the inside of the building. The floor was burned completely through. And back in the mid-'80s, we decided, a group of volunteers decided and got together and decided that that building could be a real resource for the town. And we, with the help of the Army Reserve, Roland put a new roof on because the roof had been burned. The inside had been burned completely. The facade and stage had been completely burned. But with a group of volunteers and the help of the Army Reserve and some material costs, we were able to bring the building back. And at one time, until we built the new town hall, the Dara Pond building was the most valuable piece of town property other than the school that we have in town. And like somebody brought up, at one time I got burnt out and left that project, unfortunately. But as far as the money that has been spent on the building is valued somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000. We have spent a very small part of that, and it is a very valuable resource. We did some research. with respect to funding the providing services and sources of revenue through bingo or through, we have complete kitchen facilities there, there's bathroom facilities, there's storage space, there's office space. I'm convinced that that this building could be a tremendous long-term four-season resource to the town. It would put a big onus on the Recreation Committee if they're able to get the heating system in there and get the make that a good resource for the town. More power to them. And there's nothing to make me any happier and prouder of the town than if we were able to do that.
Call the question, please.
Question has been called. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Debate is ended on Article 5. We'll now vote on Article 5. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000, et cetera, to fix up the Dare Pond Road building. Please use ballot number 10. While you're voting, I will announce that I will first announce that the ballots are closed on Article 1. On Article 3, the vote was 133 yes, 122 no. Article 3 passed. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't we take a 15-minute break? And bring the meeting back to order. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard references and inferences to a town profile a couple of times in debate tonight, but yet nobody's really talked about it. Andy Proman, who's the chair of the planning board, I think very rightfully suggested to me that we allow him to speak to what it is, what its intent is, and at this point I recognize Andy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Andy Proman, 31 Chasebrook Circle Planning Board Chair. The community profile, which has been thrown out here tonight, is an event that the Planning Board, along with the UNH Cooperative Extension Service, is sponsoring, and our intent is to gather as many people as possible in the town, in this building, on Friday night, May 1st, Saturday, May 2nd, to discuss and hash out and develop a report and develop perhaps a plan when all is said and done of various issues that are addressing the town. The community profile was just addressed with the recreational needs. That's one of the many issues we hope to address. Long-term planning needs, leadership issues in the town. There are 10 different issues that the UNH Cooperative Extension Service will help guide us through facilitators and discussion groups. The Planning Board and the Community Profile Steering Committee are very excited about this project. Again, May 1st and 2nd will be the community profile. It will be in this building. We need help on our steering committee. We need help getting notice out. We need help getting flyers out to and invitations out to everyone in town. We have a meeting of our steering committee, which will be May 31st, a Tuesday night in Town Hall at 7:30. Excuse me. Thank you, Pat. March 31st, a Tuesday night, Town Hall at 7:30. We would appreciate anyone who would like to help bring this community profile to fruition, to help to join the steering committee. Again, Tuesday, March 31st, to help bring the community profile to a culmination on May 1st and 2nd. I'm available for questions, and I would also suggest that if anyone has any questions, to talk to Heather Tibbetts and Frank Byron, the co-chairs of the steering committee for the community profile. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Before we move on Article 1, there were 276 votes cast. The article needed a two-thirds majority to pass, which is 184 votes. The article got 155 yes, 121 no. The article is defeated. Excuse me. All right. Where are we here? Number 6. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $33,000 for Phase 1 of a 3-year townwide assessment update plan. The entire cost of the assessment update over the 3-year phasing will be $112,000. The selectmen recommend this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. I recognize Pat Jewett for a motion. Do I have a second to the motion? Second. Motion made and seconded. Pat, to speak to the motion.
Last time this evaluation was done was 1988. I'll be honest with you, I probably had maybe 5 or 6 people, the most, that have asked me in the last year how I felt and if I thought we should have it done again. I probably had 10 or so other people that said, no, I don't think we should have it done. So I think it's kind of a personal feeling. Some people say yes, some people say no. But I can give you some facts on what we have done as selectmen with it. In 1996, we had 20 people who applied for reimbursement. And out of the 20, 10 received a reimbursement. And in 1997, we had 8 apply, and as up until now, we have not had any that have collected, but some are still in the process of working on it. In other words, they applied too late. So some people say yes, and some people say no. So if I have a question, I always say, put it to the people and let them decide. It's your money, and I think it's up to you to decide. If you have any questions, I'll try to help you with it. Okay. Yes, sir.
I recognize Ralph Bone to speak for the Budget Committee.
I remember last year it was up on the ballot again, but the Budget Committee for, and I had to speak from down there. But anyway, the selectmen are the assessors in the town. They hire somebody to do it. So if there's any issue as houses being assessed wrong, the selectmen have the authority to fix it. One of the problems where this comes from, because when I was a selectman we had the same problem, in 1988 when the assessment was done, that was right before the market dropped. If we had waited 2 years we wouldn't have this problem today. What happened is every year the Department of Revenue Administration goes through and looks at all the sales in the town and compares it to what the house was assessed at and initially what also would have sold at. And they give an equalization ratio. Right now the town's about, I believe, 135%, which means all new houses. So if you buy a new house for $200,000, you're going to be assessed as if it was $270,000. Now, the issue is people don't know that. They believe they're real estate agents when it says the tax rate is whatever times 200,000. That's what your taxes will be. Now, a great place for the selectmen to fix this is in the town hall. Put up a sign saying what the real tax rate is, so when newcomers come to register their vehicles, they know what what their real tax is going to be, and there won't be a problem. So, also at this point, the market is increasing, the housing market. So the prices are going up. So it's really not a good time to do the assessment again. Needs to be some stabilization. So again, please, it's at this point, it's just a waste of money. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the article? Yes, sir.
Brad Davis, 24 Cardinal Lane. My question is to Pat. Isn't there a state statute that says you have to do a reevaluation after a period of time?
No, there isn't. No.
Okay.
It was once upon a time, I guess, but there is not now.
Okay, thank you.
We have had very few comparing to other towns that have had to pay that. Okay?
Further discussion. Dave.
Pat, you say you're going to do this over 3 years, so one part of the town, 1/3 of the town will be assessed right away?
No, the land first, we're going to do the land first, another part of the town the next time, and then the following year the other part of the town. And it all be implemented at the same time. In other words, we wouldn't start taxing the land, just the land group 1 year, and then the following year just the north end, if we did the north end first, and then the south end, no. We'd
So-
tax them all at the same time, but they would be reassessed for 3 different years. Okay?
Excuse me, did everybody hear what she had to say? Okay.
Oh, come on, Will's trying
Pat?
to be funny.
Oh. Do you want to, Will? Charlie. Sorry. 1 minute. Yes, point of order. Please come forward.
Just a point of order on this particular warrant article, and I guess it's for our legal staff. If we approve the $33,000, are we then committed to the $112,000? So it's not like a contract then. So the following year we could vote it down and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That actually, the answer to that, Bill, is similar to when you do the 3-year labor contract with the teachers. You only commit 1 year at a time. No, you don't. One legislative body cannot commit money other than by bonding to another body. Further. By the way, 1 minute, John. Article 5. 171 yes, 82 no. Article 5 passed. What? Yeah. Charlie.
Just a question to Pat or to somebody. If we do the assessment part 1 this year over a 4-year cycle, or 3-year cycle
Pat,
even.
Please don't answer from there. Please use the microphone to answer. Yes, Charlie.
So if we do this over a 3-year cycle, part 1 this year, next year part 2, next year part 3, in a rising market, after it's all over, aren't we going to have to do some equalization to the year 1 numbers to get them back in balance with the year 3 numbers? Where are we any better off? At least by doing an instant adjustment every year to all the property, seems to me it's flawed, but it's equally flawed. It's a waste of money. Pat, of all people, it's a waste of money.
Vote no. Okay, the first year they're going to gather the data on the land. The second year they're going to gather the data on, say for instance, North End, because that's where I live. They won't think I'm picking on you, Charlie. And then the third year they'll gather the data for the South End, and then they'll compile all of the material. Okay?
Further discussion. Hearing none, I presume you're ready for the question. And we again have a request for a secret ballot. I did not request all these secret ballots, folks. Please use ballot number 1. Yo.
I know.
Voted as part of the budget. You're still voting in numbers. And you're still voting. You've got to raise the money in the next year. 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 for utilities for the Old Town Hall, parentheses meeting house, and to further authorize the selectmen to lease the meeting house for $1 each annually to the Litchfield Historical Society and the Litchfield Cable Committee jointly on a yearly basis. The meeting house to be managed by the Cable Committee and the Historical Society jointly, with the Board of Selectmen overseeing and approving of the usages, modifications, alterations, and structural changes to the building. The Selectmen recommend this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. I recognize John Lazaro for a motion.
I would like to make an amendment.
You got to get the motion on the first floor.
Move. Seconded.
Moved by Selectman Lazaro, seconded by Selectman Pinciero. John Lazaro to speak to the motion.
I want to make a motion to amend that article, warrant article number 7. The new wording is going to read, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease the Meeting House Old Town Hall for $1 annually to the Litchfield Historical Society, with the said lease be renewed annually at town meeting. Under the said lease, the Meeting House shall be managed by the Historical Society jointly with the Board of Selectmen, of which the Board of Selectmen will have final approval of usage, modifications, authorizations, structural changes to the building. Under said lease, the Litchfield Historical Society would be solely responsible for maintenance and utilities of the meeting house.
Do I have a second? I have a second to the amendment. You want to speak to the amendment?
Yeah. I was asked to chair the committee for this Old Town Hall, now called the Meeting House. We've had a number of meetings. We've had different people come in and speak to us. We had handouts that went throughout the town. I had about 500 handouts printed up. I got 17 back in total. 16 of them were positive. 1 was negative and said, tear it down. The 16 that came back positive said they wanted to use the building for town purposes. It's an historical factor in the town. Keep it within the town and use it by the town. Some people said use it as a school. Some said let the church have it. Others have made different kind of recommendations. One said make a movie house out of it, keep people in town. It's not quite large enough to do that, really not adequate to do something like that. We had the youth of the town from the Litchfield Middle School came forward and made a full proposal to us at a public meeting, and they said they wanted to use this building as a full recreational center in the town. I spoke with the young adults later on and their teacher and told them that I agreed with what they were saying, that they need a place, as you also already know and agreed with, but that this old building is really not adequate for them to have. It's too old, needs too much work, and just wouldn't be good for them. So we thought in the best interest of the town, the Historical Society has come forward on the committee and said that they would like to have use of the building. They have many ideas for the upstairs. They'd like to have as a museum for a lot of the artifacts that are in town at this time that are stored throughout in many different people's homes. We've also spoken with them. We'd like to keep the first floor, one as a meeting room, one as office space. We have public bathrooms there. We can open the old police chief's office up and make that a code room again. The lower level, we would like to give it, with the Historical Society allowing this, to the cable committee to use for future lab work, to store all their cable equipment there under lock and key. Right now they use the LMS library coat room or a little closet, and they cannot get in there in the summertime, so they only have partial use of the equipment we have. In the basement, a lot can be done with that on the cable committee, for editing of tapes and having movies to put out of in-town meetings and stuff on Channel 23. I would like to have Dr. Steve Calloway get up and help speak to this motion also.
Stephen Calloway, 168.
Steve, why don't you come forward, representing you?
Stephen Calloway, 168 Charles Bancroft Highway. There are some things about the Historical Society in the town hall that you may not all be aware of. The original meeting house in the town was constructed between the years 1734 to 1736. And as the river changed course, and after a series of floods, it was decided to move the meeting house from the east side of the highway to the west side of the highway to approximately the present site. And the original meeting house was taken apart, and the timbers from that were taken and used to construct what we now know as the Old Town Hall. And the doors on that building and the steps are from the original 1734 meeting house. And in terms of all buildings in the town, this is probably the single most historic building in Litchfield. And we think that preservation needs to be done to keep this building intact and as it is. Secondly, the Historical Society has a fairly vast collection of things, and we've never been able to inventory them. My house and some things are in other houses in town, and they need to be brought together under one roof so that we know what we have, we can have it appraised, and we can have it on display for the public. And that's what this amendment goes toward, is allowing us to be able to do that. Thank you.
Steve, I would add a little tidbit of information. I served on the committee that did the last move, and the architect we worked with, who was so elderly, his daughter, I think, drove him to the meetings, was a clerk in the architect's office that designed the Aaron Cutler Library. Further discussion on the article? Yes, Lauren.
Lauren Jean, 25 Charles Bancroft Highway. At the dedication, I spoke that the heart of the town was all you folks. But for 150 some odd years, what was accepted as the center of town was the old meeting house and church. Now, Litchfield is very rich in history, but we have very precious little architectural heritage left. And I can think of no better entity than the Historical Society to keep this and maintain this building, so we'll have our heritage will be there. So, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to announce the result of the vote on Article 6. Stick by, Bill. Yes, 19, no, 217. Article 6 is defeated. Further discussion on the amendment to Article 7. Bill?
I'd just like to say that the Budget Committee supports the amendment as proposed.
Further discussion? Hearing none, are you ready to vote on the amendment? Do you all have a copy of the amendment? I'll read it again. To see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease the Meeting House, Old Town Hall, for $1 annually to the Litchfield Historical Society, with said lease to be renewed annually at town meeting. Under said lease, the meeting house shall be managed by the Historical Society jointly with the Board of Selectmen, of which the Board of Selectmen will have final approval of usage, modifications, alterations, and structural changes to the building. Under said lease, the Litchfield Historical Society would be solely responsible for the maintenance and utilities of the meeting house. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment carries. I hate to tell you this, folks, but I have a legal request for a secret ballot on this article. It's been legally requested. I have to do it. Why don't we use ballot number 2?
Mr. Moderator.
Only one more with a secret ballot, the next one. Yeah.
Is currently, if you turn to page 27, you can see across the middle of the page, the fund is currently at $25,874.33. Total amounts deposited during 1997 were $6,052.66. Of that $6,000, approximately $5,000 was put in as part of a warrant article last year, which means the total amount to the fund through interest as well as turnover through current use was approximately $1,000. The Conservation Commission warrant article requests that these funds be deposited. We gain our funds to try and preserve these open spaces and wetlands through these warrant articles, as well as the current use rate or current use conversion tax that occurs on the land in town. To make sure people understand this, the current use conversion tax that goes into the Conservation Commission fund amounts to 1% of the total value of the property. To give you an example of a $500,000 parcel of property that would be turned over from current use, $50,000 would go to the town. Of that $50,000, $5,000 would go into the Conservation Commission fund. Southern New Hampshire is seeing huge increases in population growth. I attended the Conservation Commission as well as the Planning Board put on a cost of open space program. We were informed that southern New Hampshire, or New Hampshire in general, is growing by 14,000 people per year. Part of the reason we moved to Litchfield, at least I did, is for the open space as well as for the aesthetic of the environment. In the past, the Conservation Commission has done such things as purchased the Moores Falls parcel, which is open for your enjoyment down by the Merrimack River. It contains both areas where there's ecological environment there that's you can see eagles. You can also see a lot of the historical interests of the town, such as the old trolley track and the old lock system used to move barges up the river. Currently, right now, the Conservation Commission is looking at the possibility of acquiring some type of open space in town. We estimate that some of the funds that exist in this account or fund will be drained during the course of 1998. We would appreciate your support on this article. Thank you very much.
Do I have further discussion on Article 8?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Andy Perlman, 31 Chasebrook Circle, Planning Board Chair again. I cannot speak for the entire Planning Board, but I do support this article as written. The Planning Board, so folks know, right now we're taking a look at some long-term preservation projects of the open space in our community, the Conservation Commission's efforts to preserve those environmental concerns and the open space areas which they are looking at goes hand in hand with what the Planning Board is doing, and I fully support their efforts and would ask that the town do the same. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Dave?
Last year or the year before, we acquired land alongside the river that we had bought. We had some other land donated to us. Has the Conservation Committee done anything with any of that land?
During the course of this year, the Conservation Commission has gone through the approval process, and we had to get approval from the State of New Hampshire, Department of Fish and Game, as well as the electric company who owns an easement across that property to construct a parking lot there. The purpose of the parking lot is to try and allow for people to park, pull off the road, and enjoy that property. We are working currently with the Boy Scouts. One of the Boy Scouts has an Eagle Award that he will be trying to gain by putting in some type of a kiosk there to distribute literature, that type of thing, concerning the property. Also, during the course of the past year, 1997, the Boy Scouts held a camp out down there to use the property and are interested in terms of working with us over the summer, spring of this year.
My personal feeling is I would like to see more done with all the land we just accumulated before we go off and buy more.
I'd like to call the question.
Question has been called. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We've ended debate. Article 8. Article 8 is the last article that I so far have a request for a secret ballot. Please use ballot number 7, and I will announce to you now that Article 7 passed 215 to 16 as amended. Number 7. Doing this process, and by the way, this has been a rather unusual evening with the number of secret ballots, and I really do think a round of applause and thanks to our ballot clerks who are doing yeoman work and counting these is in order. Article 10. Do you see if the town will vote to accept the donation from the Friends of the Litchfield Skate Park of the skate equipment residing on the tennis court at Roy Memorial Park for use in the town's recreation program? This is by petition, and I recognize Nancy Lewis for a motion. So moved. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Nancy, to speak to the motion.
The Litchfield Skate Park is a youth-motivated project which has served teens very nicely over the last year and a half. It was about 2 years ago when a group of athletes in town decided that it was up to them to build and pay for and donate equipment so that we can use it in our rec program for athletes like them and other, all the athletes in town. So they not only raised the money and built the equipment, but they proved over the last months that this park could be very well used, well run, and well maintained. And it receives continued support from the police and recreation departments, school personnel, the recreation committee, and local businesses and lots of families. The numbers of teens in this town, as in all the towns in New Hampshire, are rising rapidly, and we need to help them address their recreational needs. And when teens decide on community service, The community should then decide to stand not in their way, but firmly behind them. Tonight, we will ask you to accept the equipment that the kids have built and is residing on the tennis court. It's valued at over $10,000 now. There is a new law in New Hampshire which exempts municipalities from liability for skate injuries when the municipality operates a skate park. And this is better liability coverage than we have for baseball. And it has given courage to over a dozen towns surrounding us so that they have started skate park projects too. If you accept the equipment, our group will continue to work on supervision, maintenance, and construction under the direction of the Recreation Committee. The only way the skate park can stay open is that if you accept the equipment in this article.
Sindel.
Sindel Bouchard, Durlawn Lane. Just want to make a few quick points. The kids in this town really need activities. Now, I have no personal gain from supporting this because I don't have any kids, but I think that providing activities for the teenagers in town benefits the entire town. Trust me, if they have nothing to do, they will find some trouble to get into. And it's very important that we provide something for them to do. The town pays to maintain the fields for the team sports, and I think we should also, by that same token, be responsible for the areas that are provided for individual sports. We have to recognize that the recreational needs of the town are evolving. This new generation of teenagers is not as interested in golf and tennis and other sports that we may be interested in. Skating is what they're into, and we need to recognize that. We need to give them the support and encouragement they deserve.
Sue Ann Johnson.
Originally, when this had first started, I had supported it. I thought that it was an ideal situation for the kids. But as the time progressed, and I went over there, and I really tried to monitor it myself, along with the other selectmen. It was kind of requested that they go up there daily if they could. I didn't find a lot of people using it. I read articles in the paper. I've read things that Mrs. Lewis, and she should be commended for the work that she's done. I wish that the kids had put as much, or more children would have put more time into it. But I didn't find a lot of the kids there. At most I had ever seen up there were probably 3, 4, 5. At the very most were 5. Sometimes I would go there and I would find Mrs. Lewis there. I would go other times late at night, 7:30, 8 o'clock on my way back from the office. There would be no one there. I very seldom ever found anyone mandatory to have a helmet, to have knee pads, to have gloves, things of that nature. They didn't have it. Yes, there is a state saying that we are not liable. I disagree with that. I think if someone gets hurt and they decide to sue, they're going to sue. There's not much we can do about it. But we as a town. So I personally have supported it. I mean, it's up to you people. We're in a tough situation. You got a few kids that use it, and that's fine. I wish that we could give each kid in town one particular item that they do. Each one be able to do what they want to do. If it were stamp collecting, let's have a stamp collecting club, and you people pay for it. Or if we're going to have baseball collecting cards, that's fine, and you pay for that. Hobbies are wonderful, but I don't think it's fair to the taxpayer that the taxpayer has to support that. And that's exactly what we're asking, is that you, the taxpayer, pay for this extra sport. There's no charge for this, only other than to you personally, in your own personal taxes. So keep that in mind.
Sue Ann.
Does Nancy want to comment on that? That would be appropriate.
I was there probably 90% of the time, and other adults were there volunteering the other part of the time. And if you walked in and out of the park and didn't see skaters skating there, it was probably because we were only open 3 hours a day, so that we could have a monitor when it was open. And in the summer, the kids could rarely skate until 6 o'clock because the shade didn't even hit the court until then. So spring and fall are the times when it's used the most. And those hours are 3 to 6 after school. And between May and September only last year, we had sign-in sheets so that we could see who was coming in. And over 300 different residents and their guests signed in and skated. And in the fall, we were averaging 15 a day. And yes, some of these were the same skaters over and over again. They would come after school every day to skate, many of them. But they were kids that would have just been riding around in their cars or thinking of other things to do if they weren't there. So, yes, it was used when it was open, during its open hours.
Sue Ann Johnson, despite some of the other articles I've spoken on this evening, I am in favor of supporting the youth of this community. I do not have children. I wish I did. If someone has a couple extra kids that they want to get rid of, I might consider taking them.
Careful, you might get what you asked for. So.
From your mouth to God's ears. I think it sends the wrong message for us to say no to the kids. They've worked hard to put this together. Teenagers, you don't give them something constructive to do. I was there. We were all there. You're going to find something unconstructive to do. I think it's important that we accept the donation of the skate park. The annual maintenance, from what I understand, would probably be only around $500, which is very small. And I'm just in favor of it, and I hope everyone votes to accept it. Thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. Article 8, 139 yes, 84 no. Article 8 passed. Go ahead.
Larry Levesque, I'm on the Recreation Committee. The Recreation Committee is in favor of this. The use of the tennis court for the facility is definitely drawn a lot more use out of Darapon. There's been a lot more people at the skate park than at tennis, and I've definitely observed an increase in use of the park due to this. That's pretty much all I can say. We're in favor of it. It's for the youth. The youth needs a place to go, things to do, and it's also for the adults. The skateboarders and inline skaters are also welcome. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that. And I know there's a growing number of inline skaters in town that have been using the bike path. Bike path leads right up, basically, to the front door, right to the skate park. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment?
I'm Dick Rafferty. I'm also on the Recreation Committee. I've spent a lot of time down at the Darapon area working on the soccer field, and I've seen Mrs. Lewis there. And I have seen a lot of kids using it, never causing any trouble. I really want to commend her, especially and her group, for bringing something positive to our town. Most of the positive things I see in our town seem to come from volunteers: Little League, softball, soccer, skate park, recreation committee. We're all volunteers, don't receive any money, do a lot of work. I thank you all for doing the right thing and supporting Article 5 to enhance the Darapon property. I think our town has an asset in this skate park, which most other towns don't have, and that's something that's rare for Litchfield. We have something and other people don't, and I really want to urge you to keep it. I want to urge you to send a message to our selectmen that it's time that the town steps up and does something for the community. Rather than relying constantly on volunteers, now's the time to step up and do this, and I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Snyder, Mayflower Drive. I had the privilege of volunteering at the skate park this year. Never once did I have a problem with a teenager when I said, hey, elbow pads on. On they went. They all signed in. As the summer went on, the group grew, and it wasn't just teenagers. You had parents bringing 5, 6, and 7-year-olds on little inline skates and skateboards. This is a growing group. This is just not going to go away. And I think the kids deserve it. They've worked hard for it. And they've got a bad rap. It's been in the paper and everything else. They've gotten a bad rap for being skaters. Well, you know what? I had my year-old child with me last year, and any problems I had, there wasn't one teenager there that wouldn't help me. Give these kids a chance.
Bill Spencer.
Bill Spencer. Some of you may know I spent a lot of time running on Albuquerque. I can tell you that before that skate park was put in place, it was the unusual day when I didn't see kids on skateboards or inline skates out on Albuquerque Avenue. I don't see them there anymore. Mr. Levesque pointed out that the bike path is now in. I see a lot of people using the bike path, including skateboard and inline skaters. It's an ideal feeder to Darrah Pond. I assume it'll be continued further in the future. So I would urge you to support this article.
Mr. Charbonneau.
I'd like to call the question.
Too late.
Oh, can't be too late.
Question has been called. Sit down, Pat. Question has been called. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Debate is closed. We will take a vote. I'm sorry. I recognized him. He called the question. The rules of order say when the question is called, she didn't get my attention. The question has been called. The question has been called. We are about to vote on the article. The question has been duly called and debate has been closed. Pardon me? All right. We've closed debate on Article 10. All those in favor of Article 10 to see if the town will vote to accept the donation from the Friends of Litchfield Skate Park of the skate equipment residing on the tennis court at Roaring Memorial Park for the use of the town's recreation program, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Article 10 is passed. We're now debating Article 9. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the use of one tennis court at Roy Memorial Park for the next 5 years for inline skating and skateboarding facility presently residing there. By petition, I recognize Nancy Lewis for a motion. So moved. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Nancy to speak to the motion.
We ask you to allow us to leave the equipment on the tennis court where it is. This is the least expensive way to operate this skate park. I know that it gives up one tennis court of the 4 we have in town. But right now there is not a high demand on the other 3 courts, and we feel that this is a good use of what we already have. To completely separate the skate park from the other tennis court, we could add a 10-foot high chain link fence like the one that goes around the tennis courts now to separate the two with a locking gate. I feel that that would be useful. It would be useful to lock the gate when we're not having our open hours. And it would also give tennis more a place that's just theirs, and there wouldn't be interference of the 2 activities. We will be pursuing grant monies for other associated things with the skate park, including permanent outdoor toilets, outdoor drinking fountain, and emergency telephones. And if the skate park stays at Roy Memorial Park, this will benefit everybody that uses the park for swimming or baseball or soccer or whatever. So I see that as another advantage. And truthfully, relocation may not be possible at all because we have estimates submitted that bring the cost over $20,000, and we would need to raise that money. And we would also need another vote from the Board of Selectmen to approve a new site. So if you would like the skate park to stay open, then the cheapest way to do it and most practical is to leave it on the tennis court for now.
Thank you. Quentin.
Quentin Lewis, 16 Meadowbrook Lane. I had two questions that sort of relate to all three of these articles. The first question is, I assume that all of this work was done in conjunction with the Recreation Committee, and they're all happy and they want to do this. I heard from several people. I'm just curious why these articles weren't presented to the town by the Selectmen or the Recreation Committee, but done by petition. I guess that's a question to the Recreation Committee or the Selectmen.
We have somebody from the Recreation Committee coming up behind you.
Basically, the Recreation Committee, it's a small group of about 5 of us right now, and we're all new members, relatively under a year. We've got a lot of energies to give, and we've been kind of learning as we go. We've done a lot of work with Mrs. Lewis. She's attended all of our meetings that I can recall since I've been on the committee. And basically, we pretty much said, you do the work, you get it written, you get it proposed, because she knows the skate park is her baby. She knows it better than we do, and we'll support you. So I feel comfortable saying that from the Recreation Committee, she's had our support, and basically we just asked her to do the work and make the presentation.
You have a follow-up, Glenn?
I do. Well, now that the Selectmen and the Recreation Committee own the skate park, or the town does, but they're going to run it for us, I'd like their opinion on one of these two warrant articles. I mean, I know we can't talk about the second warrant article, but I'd like to understand we have essentially two things to do with it, keep it there or remove it. Now they are involved because they wanted it, we have it, so I think that's a fair question.
John?
Initially, I think what it was is that the Board of Selectmen felt that the tennis courts were donated to the town for tennis, not for a skateboard park, for tennis. What we had done by putting the skateboard park there was just initially to see how the reaction of the kids would be, how they utilize it, so forth and so on. Again, Mrs. Lewis has done an outstanding job. She's put in an awful lot of time, a lot of effort. So are the kids. I mean, I was in total support of it. In fact, I probably was the leader of it. But again, the tennis courts were put there for tennis. We lost a tennis teacher through the summer camp because she wouldn't teach on one single court. Those courts were donated to the town as tennis courts, not for skateboarding. Do we need to move it? We talked about that, I think. Am I right, Mrs. Lewis? We talked about moving it at one time. We had talked about moving it. We never really, we had discussed it, I think, with the Recreation Committee and wondered if there was a location that would be suitable. We never did really come up with a solution to that. And you know, that's where we're at. I mean, I understand your feelings for having it for the kids. I mean, I think it's great to have anything for the kids. I don't care what it is, like midnight basketball or whatever. But you have to understand that these facilities were built or donated to the community by people in the community for particular items. That tennis court was given to the community as a tennis court. We took it on ourselves to give the skateboard people an opportunity to try, and that was what the word was to let's try it for a couple of months and see exactly what happens. And let's try it for a year, I think was, if I'm correct, right? A We had said, we'll give you a year and let's try it and let's see what the outcome is. And yeah, you people have voted. You own it. It's now a town facility. The thing is we will still need now, as a community, to be able to police that. So now we're going to need someone to be there to take care of it, to lock it up, to open it up, to make sure everyone is wearing helmets, gloves, knee pads, that type of thing. So we're going to have more volunteers. And I think that was a problem we had, was Mrs. Lewis has spent a lot of time there. There were a lot of volunteers. But now we're going to have someone there, because now this is ours. We own it. It's that simple. So, not against it. I just think that we should have gave it a little more thought.
Yes, sir.
Larry Levesque. I'm speaking for the Recreation Committee that we're in favor of this article. I am aware that the facility was donated as tennis, but as other things in this world and in this town, interests change. The use of it as a tennis court, as far as I've noticed, has diminished a lot. There wasn't much use at all. There's a lot more use as a skate facility. And I believe now that the town owns it, it comes underneath the Recreation Committee's responsibilities, being located at thereupon, if that's what the final outcome would be. And I guess pretty much I'm up here asking people if they get in touch with us and if they were interested in donating time to come down and staff this and watch the kids and watch the grown-ups and just have a good time.
Mrs. Jewett, you have my undivided attention.
I probably spent, maybe 100 days this last year that I went down to Darapon Park, okay? I'd kind of trying to do it nicely without looking like I was spying on anyone. I'd take 2 trash bags, pick up 2 bags of trash, and one time I actually had a boy follow behind me. Now this shows you how naive I am. I come back to the selectmen and I said to him the following meeting, wow, I had a funny feeling. After I walked around and picked up my 2 bags of trash, a boy came out from the skateboard park, tall, good-looking boy, handsome, followed me, and I never thought too much of it. And then I felt he was getting closer and closer. Then a child from, I'm not going to say the name they called because you might recognize the person, said, come on, Will, come on back. It wasn't Will Jewett, and it wasn't, okay? It wasn't, okay, but I hadn't thought too much of it, but he actually was stalking me. I'm old enough to be his grandmother, as you can realize, okay? This is an example of some of the things that we saw. On May 14th, I was there from 3:10 till 3:55. I picked up 2 bags of trash within 25 feet outside of the tennis court, just outside. I didn't go down. And every time I did that, I'd walk down to the pond, look around, go around by the ball field a little bit after that, and so forth. While I was there, there were 4 teenagers, okay? 2 of them were Mrs. I'm sorry, your name? Lewis, I'm sorry. Mrs. Lewis's son's guests from Nashua, she told me. And then 2 other boys came, and I said, oh, you're not letting them in? She said, no, they're from Nashua. I said, oh, well, how come? If your son can have 2 guests, why can't, if that was my son over there skating, why couldn't he? I don't have a son, by the way, young enough to skateboard. All right. On May 16th, which was 2 days later, I walked the same area. That day, Mrs. Lewis walked along with me. And what do you think I picked up? 2 rods. In fact, I thought I had them tonight with me. I had them in the back of my car, brought them in the house, wrapped them in a plastic bag, and laid them on my couch, intending to pick them up. Will's hollering, come on, Pat, let's go. So I rushed out and didn't pick them up. But here there is one big rod, and Mrs. Lewis saw me pick them up. So there's no getting out of it. I didn't pick it up. They were within 15 feet Also, another big chrome one. And she said that looks like it came from a leg from a desk. Well, I don't know where it came from, but it was kind of scary to see two big rods that big 2 days before they had cleaned up the place. Okay, at that time, there were 4 people on the skateboard park, in a park. 2 of them had, one had a helmet and one had knee pads, and that was it. The others had nothing on. There were 2 girls that walked in while I was there. On May 21st, Mrs. Lewis's niece was there, okay, and there were 5 cars in there with no resident stickers on. So I said, what do you do about these cars? To the niece. And she says, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do with them. There were 3 skateboarding, and there were 2 others that came in a big car with a Massachusetts license. And so I said to one of them, oh, are you from Litchfield? Are you a newcomer like I used to be? And I kind of joked a little bit, kind of talking to him, and he seemed like a nice kid and all. And he said, no, I'm from Salem, but I heard all about this place, so I've come up to have a good time. I said, oh, okay. On another example of a time I was there was June 28th at 7:45 p.m. There was no supervision. That was on a Saturday, and it said it was open until 8 o'clock. There was no supervision there whatsoever. There were 8 kids on the skateboard park. 2 of them were sitting around. 2 of them had rollerblades on. No one had a helmet on, and no one had any visible pads on. I even took the numbers of the things, of the registrations. 4 of them out of the 8 cars there did not have a sticker. So I don't mind supporting kids from Litchfield. I'm all behind them. I would back them up. I'd go down and volunteer myself to help. But I want to make sure we're doing it for our kids. I really don't want to support somebody else's kids. I think if we can do our own and do a good job, we're going to be lucky. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dick Rafferty again. I can't figure any more reason now to support it than Pat just gave us. So I thank her for that.
Christine Lapine from 8th Century Lane. I'll be really fast, promise. Just one question. Has any of the donors or the heirs of the donors objected to the use of the, is anybody aware of any donors or the donors' heirs objecting to the use of the tennis court? Has that come to anybody's attention? Huh? Are you the donor? Oh, he's okay. All right, so we'll see if you can object. And also, I say, please, let's don't slap these volunteers in the face. I mean, we cry and cry that we need volunteers, we need decent people to do things, and particularly if the kids, if these teens have put this together in the backup of the adults, let's support them and let's don't slap them in the face for all their hard work.
I'd just like to give everybody a point of clarification. Basically, the 4 tennis courts built in the town of Litchfield were donated by our development companies. Tennis was the only thing anybody could dream of at the time, so that's why they were built. They were actually also for basketball. I don't think they were ever said they were strictly for tennis. I think whatever the use is. I would like to call the question, and I support it.
Unfortunately, Mark, you can't call the question after speaking.
Kathy Snyder again. The kids from the skate park aren't the only ones going into Darrah Pond or going into Darrah Park. So to hang them for all the trash and cars without town resident stickers? I've been in town for 30 years. I don't have a sticker.
Lisa Keller, Pilgrim Drive. I started searching for a new home in Litchfield a few years ago before the skate park even existed, and one of the homes we looked at was on Darrah Pond. Because we were really serious about this home, we asked some neighbors if anything was going on at the park at night, and they said, well, yeah, some things do go on. But these things go on before the skaters were there. I agree with this lady. You can't hang things that happen at the park on the skaters. I've been down to the park in the summer. I'm in walking distance. I've seen Mrs. Lewis there, and this woman deserves a lot of credit, and so do these kids. Don't hang everything that happens at 2 o'clock in the morning from who knows what kids, where, or what adults on the skaters. Thanks.
Call the question.
Thank you, Bill. Question has been called. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. All those in favor of Article 9 to see if the town will vote to appropriate the use of one tennis court at Roy Memorial Park for the next 5 years for inline skating and skateboarding facility presently residing there. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Passed. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 for the purpose of moving the skate park equipment from the tennis court to another location on town property. This article will be necessary only if the warrant article to leave the skate park equipment on the tennis court does not pass. With your acceptance, we will pass over Article 11. Is there any opposition to doing so? Hearing none, we'll pass over Article 11. Moving right along, Article 12. In the interest of are you all following along in your town reports? In the interest of time and my voice, I will entertain a motion to approve Article 12 as written. Do I have a motion? Yeah.
Make the motion to accept as written. Second.
Motion made and seconded by Selectman Pinciero. John, speak to it.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to withdraw this. After discussion with town council, we feel that this issue needs a little more work. Thank you.
I have a motion to withdraw. Do I have a second? Second. Motion made and seconded to withdraw Article 12. All those in favor of withdrawal? Excuse me. Any debate on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of withdrawing Article 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay? No. Motion is withdrawn. All righty. Article 13. To see if in the event that the annual meeting does not appropriate money to fund the same, if the voters will vote to authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address all negotiated cost items or the fact finder's report leading to Local 3657 for the police personnel only. This article is by petition. I have had discussion with council. Basically, the intent of the petition is to enable us to hold a town meeting without a special town meeting without getting permission of the court. The laws do not permit that. So I'm going to rule the article inexpedient to pass because it's contrary to law. Is there any opposition to my ruling? Hearing none, we'll pass over Article 13. Article 14. To raise such sums of money as may be necessary to defray town charges for the ensuing year and to make appropriations of the same as set forth posted herewith and to consider each item in whole or in part. This is the main budget as found on pages 14 through 18 of your town report. I will recognize the chair of the Budget Committee for a motion indicating the total bottom line budget, not including any other monies previously approved. This will be the main motion. As we review the budget, I will accept motions in writing to amend the main motion dollar amount, up or down, with reference to a particular line item. I recognize Budget Committee Chair Spencer for a motion.
I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,023,272 in addition to sums already appropriated above to defray town charges for the ensuing year.
Do I have a second? Let me just write down, so you can write down the number. I'm going to speak to it also. Write down the number for me.
I'd like to speak to the motion and just give you some highlights of what's in this budget over and above the normal operating costs. There are wage increases being proposed in this budget. The current salary table for the non-bargain for employees takes 25 years to get to the top. The selectmen have recommended condensing that to 17 years, and the Budget Committee has concurred in that. As a result, almost every town employee will receive an increase, with the most senior town employees getting increases ranging from $1,500 to $4,000. The salary costs for the library have also increased significantly as a result of hiring a full-time librarian. The Budget Committee has also recommended that the selectmen's salaries be increased from $791 per selectman to $1,506. This is a recommendation of the Budget Committee, not the selectmen. The Budget Committee reviewed the salaries of both selectmen and school board members for towns similar in size in New Hampshire. The average salary for selectmen for a town the size of Litchfield was $2,300, and the committee is recommending an increase to that level, with part of it this year and part of it next year when you get a chance to vote on it next year. The operating costs for the town hall have increased significantly, and that's because you've got a bigger town hall now. The police budget contains replacing 2 cars this year, but that increase is diluted somewhat because there's lower spending on salaries, since we still have a couple of vacancies, so we haven't funded those vacancies. There is no increase for the bargain for police officers because that contract hasn't been settled yet. And the last thing I'd like to do is recognize Brent Lemire for the excellent job he did in managing his budget. He brought one in to us that the Budget Committee made very little changes in, which was unusual for the Budget Committee to do anything with a line item.
Anyone else to speak in general to the budget? Charlie.
I would just make an observation. If you ever wanted to see a reason to pass Senate Bill 2, and we had the good wisdom to do that, you should look around the room right now compared to what this place was like at 7:30, and watch the people going out when we're about to do the big piece of the budget. Congratulations, Lauren. The evidence speaks for itself. No, I have if I could be recognized a second time.
Yeah.
I'd like to move the bottom line. Call the question.
We already have the motion. You can't call the question now.
I have a specific question on the police department budget, a line item. I understand there's some new bulletproof vests in that. I wonder what you're going to do with the old ones. The school board could maybe use them.
They might negotiate a loan for you next week anyway, Rich.
Rich, I'm not sure they have one big enough for you, though.
Tom, you want to speak? Yeah. Hold on one second.
Yeah, for the record, at this time, I'd like to move to amend the salary and personnel administration accounts to provide a 3% raise across the board pay increase for all non-bargain for employees. The cost for this increase is $13,740. This will be accommodated by reductions in all other accounts to make this match up. There will be no net increase in the proposed budget. This is just for the record.
There's no, but you're changing the line.
Yeah, we're not changing the bottom line, but not the bottom line. Right?
All right. Okay. Okay, the amendment is to move to amend the salary and personnel administration accounts to provide a 3% across the board pay increase for all non-bargaining employees. The cost for this increase is $13,740 and will be accommodated by reductions in other accounts. There will be no net increase, or no net change, you mean, in the total budget. Is there a second to the amendment? Discussion. Tom? All right. No. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment passes. Further discussion on the budget? Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't have, do you have the bottom line right now?
Can I ask you a question, Mr. My name's Cheryl Gallagher, and I was wondering on that 3% raise to town employees, is that across the board for everybody? Does that include the police department, since Article 13 was...
No, that's the non-bargaining employees.
Can we make a motion for them to get a raise too, so they don't have to wait another year?
No, that has to be bargained. That's under a labor contract.
Negotiation of the union, that can't be done on the board.
So they can't get a raise then until next town meeting?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's a negotiation of the union and the town, which is now in a fact-finding position. That is not something that can be discussed on the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make an amendment to line item 1350-001 to bring the total value, or an addition of $8,830 for equipment for the police department, to authorize them to buy additional handguns, firearms, to perform the duties, to bring the total bottom line to 203-2102.
Do I have a second? Motion to amend made and seconded. Yeah. John Lazaro to speak to the motion.
As you all know, and we are now in the process of picking up looking at a new police chief. The previous police chief was adamant about not having automatic weapons, and that's what we're talking, semi-automatic weapons. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about semi-automatic weapons. Dave Roberts was definitely not in favor of that. Dave is gone. We have a new chief. When we have a new chief, if he feels that the officers should have semi-automatics, then I think that's his choice. I don't think that's a decision that this body should make. Let him come forward and explain to you why the officers should have the weapons. Let's just give the new chief, whoever he may be, the opportunity to make the choice for his department.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, I'm not a resident, but I am the senior patrol officer in Litchfield, and I was wondering if I could have the opportunity to speak on this.
Yes.
I was wondering if the town, if one resident could make a motion to allocate 3% for the bargaining personnel. If this doesn't happen, then we'll continue to lose officers.
You're out of order. This item cannot be discussed because of the labor laws. It cannot be discussed.
I disagree. I think the town can just appropriate 3%.
I have town council to speak to that.
We've looked into this issue. Because the matter is before collective bargaining and fact finders reports are out now, we're not allowed to discuss it. If we did, we could be charged with an unfair labor practice. It's just the way the law is. Because it's in negotiations, we're not allowed to go any further at this point at town meeting on this issue.
You are accurate that we can't discuss the fact finder's report. However, I think that the town can appropriate 3%, which is not very much, and may save a couple of officers.
What you're saying has a degree of logic to it, but the law just doesn't allow us to do it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any discussion, further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know if you wanted Mr. Spencer to go first.
Your discussions on the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm Sergeant Cadet from the Police Department. I'm non-resident, but I believe the employees are allowed to speak. Lieutenant Millette and myself did the budgets this year in the absence of the chief, and I would just like the floor to know that, you know, even though we didn't have a chief at the time, the Board of Selectmen did recommend this appropriation during the budget deliberations. So they didn't have a problem with it during the budget time for us to have that, that money. I don't know why that's changed, because we're still without a chief.
Right.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Spencer.
One of the reasons why the Budget Committee did not recommend this particular item in the police budget was that the current weapons were, I believe, 3 years old. We had just purchased them 3 years ago. And recognizing again that there'd be a new chief coming in, it just didn't make sense to replace existing weapons that are relatively new with a new chief who may not even want that type of weapon. And that's why the Budget Committee recommended against purchasing them this year.
Yes, Jerry.
Hey, I'm Lieutenant Jerry Millette. I'm the officer in charge of the police department. The weapon system that we are seeking to purchase is a .45 semi-automatic pistol. What we currently carry is a .57 Magnum revolver. By transitioning to the .45 caliber pistol, we do not sacrifice the effectiveness of the round which we would be using. What we are gaining is that it's a safer round. The .57 Magnum has a muzzle velocity of about 1,250 feet per second, and it's a very powerful round, and it's a very effective round. And unfortunately, in our line of work, you issue us firearms for one purpose, and that's to stop people who may be intent on causing death or serious bodily injury to somebody else. By transitioning to this .45, it becomes a little bit safer round, but we don't lose anything as far as effectiveness. And that was why that weapon system was chosen. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment?
Mr. Moderator, Andy Perlman, 31 Chaseburg Circle. I'm confused. I have a question. Is the amendment designed for the discretion of the police chief to purchase weapons if he deems necessary, or is the amendment intended to actually go ahead and purchase the additional weapons? It's to go ahead and purchase.
Yeah. Replacement weapons.
So to replace the weapons.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Donna Ferguson, 1 Martin Lane. The money that's been proposed in this article or this
amendment
is money included in that for overtime and training for the officers? Won't they have to be trained on these weapons?
There is a price of $485 per pistol minus the $250 trade-in for the current revolvers. And there's also a 600 round per man of .45 caliber transition training ammo in the amendment.
Further discussion, Dave?
Yeah, I guess what I don't like is at this last minute of these meetings, somebody coming up and starting to throw us all kinds of figures on materials that we don't know anything about. It's not in the book. Nobody has a chance to look into it. The Budget Committee all of a sudden is being thrown at something. I think if these figures are going to be coming up, it should have come up months ago. It should have come up where people could have looked into it, found out if it was reasonable, instead of this last minute saying, we want 3% here, we want $8,000 here, we want that there. It just, this last minute throwing money in the budget, it just shouldn't be.
If I'm not mistaken, Bill, you mentioned that the Budget Committee did look at this issue? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Bruce Lewis, 44 Stark Lane. And my only thought on this is a line item that the police department needs to utilize to do their job. My only I guess I would be in favor of it if the police department feels they need the weapons. They're the experts in that area. And, I don't know if it's a police chief decision to whether or not to have weapons, but I think the town residents should consider that, they've hired these people. This is their job, their area of expertise. And given that, I would speak in favor of supporting, if they feel they need an upgraded weapon system, we should support that.
I think I need some clarification because I believe the amendment is for $8,830. $8,830, and the request the Budget Committee had reviewed was for $6,375. So is this inflation or what happened?
If I may, the reason for the difference is the provision for the purchase of transition training ammunition, which was not in the original request.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the amendment.
Question's been called on debate on the amendment. Are you in favor of increasing somewhere in the police line item the amount of $8,830 for the purchase of new weapons, replacement weapons for the police department? This would bring the total budget to $2,032,102. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Noes have it. The amendment is defeated. Further discussion on the main motion as originally made.
Yes, right here.
Okay.
Personally, I just soon go without the selectmen's raise this year. We voted ourselves not to give the raise. I would like to put that in on employees' raise because that is going to be quite an increase overall. And I think this is one thing the selectmen can do. I don't think anybody runs for selectmen for the money. If you do, you're running for the wrong thing. It's an honor to be able to serve the people. Okay? So I'd like to go without it.
Do you have a formal written motion, Pat?
No, I don't.
I have the hardest time making her live by the rules.
Move the question.
I'm still in discussion with Mrs. Jewett. She is preparing her motion in writing.
Make a motion.
I got slapped upside the head once for not paying attention to it.
Bill, what's the total? Or we'll put it in the employees. Yeah. I think it's 976.
Pat, time's wasting.
I know it. Hurry. To reduce it $3,500.
Minus 3,500?
Yeah.
What's the new total?
We were getting $971.
Just a minute, Pat. Let's get a motion on the floor.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion to amend the budget by reducing the line item for selectmen's salary by $3,500. And I'll give you a new total, but is there a second to the motion? Second. Motion made and seconded. Any debate? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment to reduce the selectmen's salary item by $3,500, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Can I have a show of hands? Those in favor, please say aye of amending. Those opposed? I need some counters. It's too close. Jack and Ralph, will you count this side? Jack, count that side. Please stay in place. Those in favor of the amendment to reduce the selectman's salary by $3,500. Please raise their hand. Thank you. Those opposed? We clearly have support of the motion. Thank you. So now our main motion is for $2,028,602. Is there further discussion on the budget?
I move the question.
You haven't been recognized yet. Mr. Baum.
I move the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The debate is closed. All in favor of a budget of $2,028,602. Excuse me, that's not correct. That's not correct. I took that off the defeated amendment. 202, 3272 minus new bottom line would be $2,019,772. Do you agree, Bill? The main motion is $2,019,772. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is passed. Article 15, to hear reports of agents, committees, and other officers therefore chosen and to transact any other business that may legally come before said meeting, including the reading of minutes of the current or prior meeting. I will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of minutes and reports and commend to you the reports printed in the annual report. So moved. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you.